a lot of struggle. And so I want us to look at Genesis chapter 32, beginning with verse 22 or verse 23, because here Jacob had been really wrestling with God all his life for control, always trying to control things. He was a manipulator, always trying to manipulate things, and it would always come back to really hurt him. And so he had basically stolen the birthright from his brother Esau, and after all these years had passed, Esau was now coming back to meet him. And Jacob didn't know if Esau was going to try to get revenge or if it was going to be a peaceful meeting. And so the night before they're to meet, Jacob wrestles with God one final time. And really it symbolized all of the wrestling that he'd done all his life. It really, that real wrestling with God that night was the culmination of a lot of wrestling with God. And have you ever wrestled with God, over something that's going on in your life that you're struggling with, and maybe you're trying to gain control, you're trying to do it yourself, you're trying to manipulate a situation, and God just wants you to give up and surrender, stop wrestling with God and let him, take over. And so we see it here in verse 23. After he had sent them across the stream, he went over with all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked, "Well, what is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." And so Jacob realizes he's come face to face with God, and he's wrestling God all night long. And so then God just touches his hip, and his hip goes out of socket, and the match is over. God lets him wrestle with him for a long time, and then he touches his hip, and it's over. But Jacob, who had been struggling to get away from God his whole life, he was wrestling with God for control to get away from God, but then everything changes once he surrenders. And he loses the match, and he surrenders over to God. Then he holds on to God for God to bless him. And he says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And I love that, because what a change. Here he was, wrestling to gain control, to get away from God all his life. But now that he's surrendered, he's holding on with all his might for God to bless him. He doesn't want to let God go because he wants that blessing, and God blesses him. Have you ever been in that place? Maybe right now you're in the place of struggling and trying to gain control and trying to control a situation that God never meant for you to control. And it's time for you to give up, stop wrestling. But it's time for you to hold on to God and say, "God, I need you to bless me in this situation. I give it up to you, but I need you to bless me. I'm not going to let you go till you bless me." Have you ever been that determined, really that humble, to admit how much you need God, to say, "God, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. I'm going to keep praying about this. I'm going to keep praying about this. I'm going to keep praying about this. I'm not giving up until you bless me." And so that's why we've been keeping our journals, because we've been praying. We've been praying for God to answer our prayers. So don't give up now. Keep holding on until God blesses you. God bless you. And we're going to continue in our 50 days of prayer. Continue to pray, and don't give up.